Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ABOO Group, to your ABOO Leadership lunchtime session. And I'm Lucy McCarraher, the founder of Rethink Press and the Business Book Awards, and I've written quite a lot of books. And with me, I have here today the wonderful Helen Oakwater. So Helen, welcome. So Helen is the founder of FAB Parents, and FAB stands for Foster Adoptive Birth, which is an area very close to my heart as well. So Helen is an international speaker and an integrative coach. She is the author of 2 books, Bubble Wrapped Children and Want to Adopt. And Helen's mission is to help people understand why traumatized children and the adults they become behave in apparently nonsensical ways. So she's intent on melting trauma, transformation, and future-proofing children. Helen, again, welcome, and we are absolutely delighted that you are sharing for the first time here with us in the ABOO Group a new and important piece of work. I'm really excited to hear about this, so please go ahead and make our day.
Thank you. I'm really chuffed to do it as well. And now I am hoping, can you see my slides?
Not quite yet, I don't think.
Okay. We got.
Try again.
Let me share screen. Share.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Excellent.
That's it.
Now got the. Yeah, you've got it.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, right.
Lovely.
So, yes, I am absolutely chuffed to bits to be doing this, and I'm going to bang straight into sweating the important stuff and imagineering your glorious future. And what I'm going to do in this is share several models, concepts, the implications of them, the application, and then I'm going to drill down. So we're going to start wide and then drill down into a number of things. And I am hoping that what I'm going to share with you, the models, the concepts, are not only relevant for parenting, but actually life in general, self and wider things. So I'm going to start with the urgent important matrix, which some of you will already know. Important on a scale of 0 to 10, urgent on a scale of 0 to 10. So if we could take, for example, things that are happening. So when I did this a couple of days ago, my most urgent and important thing was that big yellow shape, which was finding somewhere to live. And a couple of days ago, I had nowhere to live, and I'm having to leave my rented apartment in 3 weeks' time. So that's the most urgent and the most important. And the sort of mauve blob, which is today's presentation, was frankly not as important as actually finding somewhere to live. The big blue one, top left, is I've got to organise a move, but I can't do anything. It's important, but I can't do anything about it until I've got somewhere to go. And as far as doing my tax returns, bottom right hand, green, not urgent, not important right now. We can put this into a matrix, which is what I think a number of you will have seen. It's got various names, and you can draw it in any proportion. Often it's drawn landscape simply because that's the shape of paper. And so we end up with this urgent, important classifications. And if I put those things in there, my urgent and important top yellow is still high and significant. And you start to get a sense of a place of location of challenges, things you need to do, whatevers. They change with time. Now, I'm hoping you can all see, we may just be where my picture is, but the yellow ball has disappeared. And a yellow ball has disappeared because yesterday morning I got the phone call that said, yes, you have been accepted. Finally, because 3 other sets of people turned me down. I have somewhere to live. So the yellow's disappeared and the blue has gone across because the urgency of sorting out someone to move me is still there. And the maroon has gone higher in the urgent and important because this presentation is today. So I hope that makes sense for everyone. It's the first concept and model. The next one is values. Now you can go away and dig down into the weeds on this. I've given you 2 lots of places to go. The Values in Actions Institute and also the Barrett Centre. Both of those have very good tools for helping you understand your values and what is important to you. And values and beliefs overlap, but in this context they are together, but I'm going to shorthand it into values. You'll see why a little later. And the next concept is a well-formed outcome. The what do you want? And actually getting real clarity on what you want is something not everybody does. Some people talk about goals and are they, how solid and robust are they? So what do you want? What are you going to sensory? What are you going to see, hear, feel? What's somebody else going to see? Can you start and maintain it? I can start a diet on 500 calories a day. I can do that until 2 o'clock. Then I just can't maintain it. And that's a fairly obvious one. You state it in the positive. I want to become thin, slim, and fit. Not I don't want to be fat and horrible, and I state it in the positive. Can you start and maintain it? We've already covered the positive byproducts. What are the positive byproducts of me being taking me less overweight, or what the current behavior? What am I getting from it? Where do I want this? In what context? If I want to be sexy and gorgeous and adorable, do I want to do that if I'm standing on a platform talking to an audience? Do I want it with my bank manager? Probably not. Do I want it with my lover? Of course. The ecology of this, what do you want? Is it in keeping with your sense of self and who you are, assuming you fully know what that is? What is the cost to you in energy, in money? How much time is it going to take? And when you start going around those things, then you can say, actually, I'm going to get a well-formed outcome. And is it in your control? Is it, if you say, I want my husband to love me, am I in control of that, or is my husband in control of that? So getting a really well-formed outcome that is robust is really important. And what are the outcomes that you may want through time? And can we learn from that? So we tend to think about the outcomes in being fairly short term, in weeks, maybe months, but sometimes we think in years. Very rarely do we think about this in decades. And now I wonder, what if we take those learnings, the outcome that we think we want now, and move it into the future, and then move it into the future, and move it into the future? How will that be? What will it be like? How will I look, think, and feel when I am slim, fit, and healthy? What will I look like if I don't do any changes? So you can take the learnings into the future. And then we can actually take those future learnings back down that timeline into the now. And the outcomes that we think we want in the future, we can imagine them. We can imagine, we can think about what it might be like. If you work with a coach, the sorts of things that coaches like me do is take people down the timeline, step forward a pace for a year and another year and another year and another year. What are you learning? What are you noticing? What else do you notice? What would somebody from the side look? What would they think? What would they think, feel? All those experience going forwards and then coming backwards. Now, my slides are not, frankly, to the highest standard that I would expect of myself, because this is, frankly, the first time I'm sharing this. And, you know, I put finding a flat ahead of making a perfect presentation, which I'm sure you all understand, because that fits with my values, and done is better than perfect. So continuing to kind of imagine these things, there may be windows of opportunity, which is my next concept, which is, according to Wikipedia, it's a period of time during which some action can be taken that will achieve a desired outcome. I have put the word optimum in because, in particular, with regard to children and child development, there are optimum periods, but I want to look at it as a bigger concept at this point. So you might have general things like, there is a window of opportunity to apply for school, university, a job. There is a deadline that you have to meet. There are optimum times for planting and harvesting because of how the sun and the moon are working. Space launches have to go. You hear about them talking about that window of opportunity. And the golden hour in medicine, which I have to say was a new concept for me, but the hour, and you can see from that chart, the death rate, depending on heart, respiratory, massive bleeding. So it helps you prioritize and really work out what's urgent and important. So you'll see some of these concepts, they overlap, they've got some components, but they're kind of coming together. And the neurological development, when neuroplasticity is at its greatest, and key functions such as imprinting and language that are acquired, which may be impossible to achieve at a later stage. That is key, and we're going to look at that in more detail. And with children and that sensitivity of learning, we're going to dig down into the weeds a bit on that. But I just want to recap just what have I explored so far in the last 10 minutes. The important urgent matrix, the values and beliefs that we have. How do we learn? We are learning. What outcomes do we want? And there is the concept of through time and going forward in time and backward in time, getting learnings, moving up and down, a recognition that on this timeline, there are windows of opportunity. And so if we then go whoosh with the magic clever graphics that we have, like, and we add alignment because these things need to be aligned, then whoosh, we end up with viola. We end up with those things in a particular format, and we then create, I have created Viola, version 1. And the window of opportunity, that rectangle, is also the letter T, the letter I, and the letter L. So that all combined takes us to the bottom right-hand side, where we have this graphic of viola. Hoping that makes sense. You're nodding, Lucy, so I'm assuming it does. Thank you. There's now another concept that kind of goes with this, and the purposes of developing the concepts and then drilling down. And the concept gives us the why, and the implication and the applications, the so what and the how to. And we're going to do some of those in particular relating to children and child development. And you'll see how now, I hope, this is going to be overlapping. Having said that, if you step back, all of those concepts and that whole concept of VIOWLAT can actually be applied anywhere, and it can be applied to business concepts, to your own life. How are you? How aligned are you? And what might you need to adjust? You might need to adjust your values and beliefs. You might need to adjust as we go through. The values and beliefs that we have when we're 20 may well change by the time we're 30, 40, 50. A big life event, the birth of a child, a diagnosis is going to change some of those values and some of those urgent and important things in that whole VIOWLAT system. So it can make a difference. So if we don't start adjusting, then VIOWLAT starts taking on a different shape. So VIOWLAT might not stay as this beautifully aligned person, shape, caricature. Bits can change because life throws things at us. And if we have behavioral flexibility and an understanding of what we need to change in ourselves and have some tools for how to change it, then we can help ourselves get back to being aligned so that our values are in line with what's important, with what's going on over time. Are we integrating the learnings? All those things. And you can see that, you know, on the left-hand side, VIOWLAT is wonderful. And the other ones are just slightly out of alignment. Maybe the values have gone. Maybe there's no outcome. So the size, just a diagrammatic representation. And just thinking about pausing and thinking, as a parent, what sort of child do you want to create? How do you want that child to be in 10, 20, 30 years' time? As a society, which of these VIOWLATs is walking our streets and why? Why are they like that? So we have a whole host of factors in child development. I'm not going to go through them now. If you're watching on, on video, you can pause it. But there are a lot of factors that influence child development. And I represent this as a wall with the different colors being different ages and stages about, what the normal child development over time is, that we would build the right things at the right time. So in 0 to 1, we would give this child attunement, love, care. We would feed them, we would nurture them, we would pat them, we would and we would give them everything that they need to help them feel safe and secure and wonderful. And then when they get to 1 to 3, they need a bit more. They still need the you are wonderful, but they also need to start crawling, and they maybe start interacting with other children. And then 3 to 7, they start going to school, socialization. The end of 7, all the imprint stage is done, and they go on to the modeling stage where they watch and learn from others. And they never listen. It's not what you say, it's what they hear and see, what they observe, not what they're told. And these stages go on. So if that occurs, then one of the big key things, and again, I'm drilling down even more into one of the applications of this whole concept, is the whole thing about arousal and self-regulation. Now, this is a very simple model of the window of tolerance. And the window of tolerance, when we're in the window of tolerance, we feel in control. We can think, we can feel. We are calm, we are regulated. In autonomic nervous system classification, we're in autonomic nervous system, ventral vagal. If we are over hyper, we are in sympathetic nervous system. We're in fight, flight. Okay, we're just going to check out what's going on. If we drop right down to the bottom, in hyper, we're in our dorsal vagal, which is the old reptilian brain body, and we're in possibly not even thinking and feeling. We are just kind of getting into that numb stage. Now, that model is of window of tolerance. With a baby, it's tiny, tiny. And self-regulation occurs when the baby is able to learn from the parent. So all that, oh yeah, oh, you're crying, oh, poor you, yeah, let's try and sort you up, oh. And you pat them and you hug them and you teach them, in inverted commas, through doing, through feeling, through the heart-to-heart reaction. And when you interact with your child, you are the external brain that helps them bring themselves down. And that's how they learn regulation. Children do not learn self-regulation on their own. It requires adults around them that are caring, attuned to their needs, which sadly doesn't always occur. But that window, sorry, let me go back one. That window of tolerance starts very narrow as a child, and with good parenting, it gradually enlarges and becomes large. And the ability to self-regulate as an adult is linked to what happens to that child as an infant. There are windows of opportunity in terms of the child development, and you can see on the yellow one, windows of opportunity, the emotional control, social attachment from birth to 2-3-ish. Now, that does obviously continue. It's not absolutely dead. It's not a cliff edge. And there are always opportunities to learn and connect and regulate. There is, for attachment and self-regulation, there is a second window of opportunity in adolescence, because the brain rewires itself, and sometimes it appears to be offline, and it starts explaining why adolescence is such a difficult time, and why sometimes you just think, oh my God, this is a toddler who's 6 foot tall. And it is because of what's happening in their brain. So go off and learn about those sorts of things. A place you can go and learn from, Bruce Perry and the Child Trauma Academy. And Bruce talks about 3-step process. The first is to regulate. I say you first got to regulate yourself. If you are the adult, then you can work with them, but you've got to regulate self first. Then you relate, and then you reason. Now, as I walk along the seafront, I regularly see parents bending down, wagging fingers at a 2-year-old saying, you're deliberately winding me up. Now you stop this right now and I won't give you an ice cream. They have no concept of time at that age. They have no ability to regulate. They continue crying. They stop crying and the parent thinks, oh, well, that's good because they've learned a lesson. They haven't. They've gone into dorsal vagal and they're just switching off. That is not how you teach self-regulation at that stage. So that knowledge and learning is really important. And part of the reason that's so important is, as this TED Talk shows us, good relationship keep us happier. And he finishes with a line, a good life is built with good relationships. I am whizzing through, you've got all the references, so you can go and check this out. For children who do not have this in their infancy, there are blocks missing from their wall and they end up with a weak wall. There are gaps in what they learn, and it means that structurally their developmental needs over time are fragmented. And this is the opening cartoon from my second book. And on the left, you've got Sandy who's crying, and Mum's going, oh, what's the matter, sweetie? Oh, you got a wet nappy. Okay, here we are. Oh, that's better. And hush, little baby, don't say a word. And the baby, through the body, knows that they are safe and special. They may not be able to put it into words, but they know intrinsically, somatically, that they are safe. And that's how you create Sandy, the securely attached, normally developing youngster. Tim is a different issue. Tim is crying. And nobody comes and nothing happens. And he ends up with this belief, I am nothing. Do I even exist? And that is the sort of impact that neglect has on children. So Sandy develops beliefs about herself that she's safe, she's loved, she's special. The world is a safe place. I'm important. There's a place for me. That's all great for me. Not every child is like Sandy. We have Tim. And Tim is my shorthand, and there's a lot of, can go into a lot of detail, but this is not the place, about metaphorical shrapnel. That's what I talk about. And the green is neglect, the orange emotional abuse. So there are different types of maltreatment and different shrapnel. And he ends up with a feeling that he is bad. He's a bad boy. And just think about what the ramifications are when you put the VIOWLAT model on that. What learnings is Tim taking from the shrapnel that he had as an infant as he goes through the future? What's being done to get rid of that shrapnel? If people don't understand that it's there, what do they do? And so as Tim gets older, problems occur in his life. What learnings does he take into the future? Does he have imagining? What's his life going to look like? Where's he going to end up? And for those of us who parent the Tims of this world, this is the stuff we have to think about, and think about why and how we can melt trauma and change what's going on inside of Tim, because this is what he believes. These are his beliefs, that he's terrified, he's alone, he's bad. People hurt you, the world is hostile. And what sort of behaviors might come from Tim? He might turn it inside and be self-harming. He might turn it outside and be angry and violent. And when you look at Tim's and Sandy's, they grow up into 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds. What sort of behaviors might you see? And I have the metaphor of the bubble wrap. And the Tims of this world metaphorically wrap themselves in bubble wrap as a way of protecting themselves when they are being maltreated. We use bubble wrap for protection, but it distorts their view of the world and the world's view of them. So for those of us who are working with children like these, living with, parenting, or just being in the same planet as children like these, we need to understand that what's going on for them. It may be that they have underlying neurological damage. We know that the effect of prenatal alcohol exposure, alcohol during pregnancy, damages the brain and the body, particularly the brain, and it is irreparable. So, oh, just one drink won't matter. Do you know what? It could, and it does. So please, no drinking with alcohol when pregnant, or if you think you might be. This is what we hope might occur for our children. We want them, if this is a child, what sort of child do you want to have? What sort of relationship do you want with your child when they're 30? What are you going to teach them? If you want them to be adventurous, don't throw them into wild adventure when they're very young and they don't feel safe. Help them build safety and stability, and then they can learn. And so it kind of takes me to the end, which is sweating the important stuff and imagineering your future, your child's future, other people's future will actually help you develop both yourself and your children, because you have to work on yourself. It's a relationship with children, with your co-workers, with your partner, with fill in the gaps. So yeah, that takes me to the end by the looks of it. Sorry. So yeah, that's where we are. Is that useful, Lucy?
Wow, Helen, that was amazing, really. So, I feel very, very moved by that. As you know, I have two of my children are adopted. My husband is also adopted, and that's just sort of taken me back into feeling for them, their early days, and how that kind of experience makes people. I'd say Margaret has commented, she says, I was a Tim. It's a never-ending journey to unlearn and address the consequences. And I think that, that's so true. That's, it's lifelong, isn't it? You can, I mean, how much do you feel that people as adults, when they understand fully what's happened to them, how much and how difficult is the work that's needed to fill in those gaps for themselves?
Okay, I'm going to answer that in segments and come back to me for the bits that I haven't covered. I believe that what children need is 100% truth telling in an age appropriate way. So for a child like Tim, let me give you an example. It's age appropriate. I talk about it as the jigsaw of truth, and that a child at the age, let's say a child who's experienced, and we never, those of us who are adoptive, foster parents, even some birth parents, you don't know what's happened sometimes, and things can happen to children that they don't share, that they don't have the words to share, and you get an inkling, you get a sense. We can form what I call this jigsaw of truth. And at the age of 5, you might be able to say to Tim, yeah, you were hurt when you were a child. And then when he's a bit older, just confirm that, yes, it's really sad. You were left in a cot for a long time. And that's why you get really upset when you're hungry. So it's a really good thing that we, keep eating on a sensible way throughout the day, so you don't get hungry and get all just because the body takes over and it's fight flight, because I've got to have food, I'm going to be and understanding that as it goes forward, and things like that, to be able to say to a teacher without saying, look, I can't share a lot of information, but if he's hungry, he is just gonna go off on one, and I know it's not fair, but he's always got to be at the front of the line in first dinners, because he believes there'll be nothing left by the time second dinners come. You just have to accept that. And teachers will go, because they don't understand this stuff. Yeah. So we share that. So he gets to 7, then he gets to 11, and he can that's the time when, Uncle Fred came along, and Uncle Fred sometimes hurt children. And 13, 14, you can use the sort of language that, Uncle Fred was a paedophile. And by 18, you can say, yes, Uncle Fred was a paedophile, and we know there are videos of your brothers being abused on the internet. We don't know whether anything happened to you. Now, if you've done that over time, if Uncle Fred gets in contact on Facebook, which he's quite likely to, then Tim is probably going to have a different reaction if he's had the jigsaw of truth being built up over time, and he's more likely to say, Mum, I've just had this from Uncle Fred. I don't know what to do. And you can have some kind of dialogue. If he doesn't know about Uncle Fred, and Uncle Fred sends a message going, hi, remember me? We had a lot of fun. Let's meet up. I'll pick you up at Waterloo Station. And teenage Tim, who hates his mum and dad, and he's really cool, of course he's going to go and meet Uncle Fred. So you are future-proofing children by telling them.
That's really interesting.
That also similar concept regarding contact with birth family and adoption. And I think there's been a change in thinking. I am certainly, my view now is that unless there is a very good reason, there should be some kind of contact with birth family so that there are no surprises later. And actually, if parents were drug abusers, alcoholics, whatever, for a child to understand that, it makes sense of nonsense.
Yeah.
So So the more of that work that can be done early on, so really good trauma-informed therapeutic interventions that are robust, and this takes courage and compassion. It's not easy. I've done this stuff with my kids. It's hard. And when people say, oh, the adoption, becoming an adoptive parent process is so difficult, it's because it's so tough, because trauma walks into your home on little legs.
Yeah.
The more you can do earlier on, the better. And it is never too late. And as an adult, the more work we do on ourselves, the more we hold up a mirror, the more we reflect on our own lives and change. And we might change our values, our belief, what's important to us. Are we aligned? If we're not aligned, what is going on? What do we need to learn? And so the whole VIOWLAT, and I have to keep looking at it written up there because it's that new. I don't have it embedded in me at the moment. But what is important, it's that new.
Yeah.
That in. So the answer to whoever asked the question, yes. I mean, I think for all of us, we all have, the technical term is shit, which is selective hurts, internalized and trapped. We all have our own shit. And the more that we work on it and the more that we process it, the more aligned we become and the more comfortable, healthier, happier, etc.
That's
that
brilliant,
answer that
Helen.
question?
Yes, it does. And I think the VIOWLAT formulation feels to me like sort of, I'm kind of visualizing it as sort of layers of, like, when you put kind of transparent layers of stuff over each other and it builds up and you can take them out and look at one at a time, but when they're all together it shows the whole picture, which is fascinating. I've got two questions here. So Faye says, what age do children's beliefs and biases get formed? I was told it was by 6, but this makes me think it can be much younger. And a second question is, Michaela asks, what do you think about concepts around making a rod for your own back as a parent by being too soft? She says, I carried these from my parents to my own children and got it completely wrong. Luckily, I had support from someone who helped me unlearn this. And thank goodness the unlearning happened right in that window of opportunity. So 2 big questions, really.
Okay, so the second one, well done, bravo. I think it's never too late, but certainly in the early stages of having young children, it's a lot easier when they're quiet. So let's give them an iPad or a phone and they'll just get on and do that. So I can have a bit of a break. Oh, it's wine o'clock. Yeah, fine, in the moment, go down the timeline. That child is not learning how to have the interactive relationships. They are not learning self-regulation. My understanding is that all those guys in California and Facebook and all those tech companies, their kids don't have tech. Their kids are out playing in the woods, having relationships. And that's what actually is valuable and useful for the child in the future. And if you don't do it early on, yes, it makes bigger problems further down the line. So that question about what sort of relationship do you want, keep doing it. The other thing to just put a thing on is, just because you get it wrong once or twice or even 3 times, it's okay. It's not going to completely destroy the child. It may be that sometimes you have to say, I'm really sorry. I blew at you. I lost my self-control. I'm going to go and sit on the, what we used to call the naughty step, but now is the self-regulation step. I'm going to go and sit on the step. I'm going to go and sit on the calm step, and I'm going to breathe. And this is a parent. I mean, I've done this as a parent and go, I'm just going to calm down. I'm going to control my breathing. I'm aware that I'm high, fast breathing. I'm going to drop my breathing down into my stomach. I'm going to calm my nervous system. Now, okay, look, Tim, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I lost it with you and I was wrong. I'm sorry. And by doing that, you are honoring your own behavior and you're also modeling for Tim what he needs to do. And in the Bruce Perry model, it's first you regulate self, and then you regulate Tim, and you say, Tim, I'm sorry. And you help him calm in whatever way age appropriate. And then you relate and you say, I am sorry. I'm really sorry. I was wrong. And can we sit down and have a cuppa? You know, should we have a cuppa, or let's just go for a bit of a walk together? And then that relationship is there. And then you reason and you say, yeah, I know I lost it. I was so upset that it was because you deliberately, you know, you broke that vase that you know was really special to me. And that's why I lost it. There's no reason for losing it, but that was my reason. And so how are we going to make amends? So you regulate, relate, reason. And kids are good at going, oh, it's all right, mum. Because they'll do that if they've done that with you. Does that answer the question?
It certainly answers a lot of the question. I think what Michaela was getting at was that her parents, and possibly a lot of our parents actually, came from the position with us as children that you have to learn, you have to be strong as a parent, you have to set the regulations and you know, punish for misbehavior, because otherwise children won't learn. And I think what you're saying is that is not the way to you know, create well-rounded children.
I would agree. And children who are raised with disciplinarian parents, my way or the highway, this is the way, you will behave like that. I know and understand that's what I was raised with. And what that does inside a small child is it creates fear. And if the adult that you go to for safety, go to keep you alive, to keep you fed, if that adult is also the person who you fear, you have a conflict between this is the person that I'm fearing and this is the person that's looking after me. So I go to you for regulation and help, but I'm scared of you. And that is not healthy. And stepping back from it, I think a lot of the time with discipline is those parents are judging their children and making assumptions on what they're seeing as the presenting behavior, and they're not looking at what's going on behind the bubble wrap. And for many of those parents, they have no idea how to be parents. We don't get taught, I mean, you know, at least we get some sex education. We don't get taught about parenting. We don't get taught about stages of child development. The parents who say, you are doing this to wind me up, and they say it to a 4-year-old. Winding somebody up requires mindsight, the ability to step into somebody else's shoes. A 4-year-old does not have that capacity. So if you are thinking, you're just doing this to wind me up, you have to stop and go, whoa, actually, no, that child is expressing how they feel, whatever's going on for them. I'm the grown up in the room here. I need to control myself and then actually work out what's going on for the child. So this whole thing about being the grown up in the room, and we're all made up of parts, and some parts of us are grown up, and all of us have got bits of us inside. I've got my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old and my 6-year-old, and we all have that. And alignment, the more you can work on yourself and age appropriately your inner parts, then the better. And there's a phrase that comes up in coaching about who's driving the bus. You've got all of these parts of you. Is my bus being driven by the 60-something adult Helen, or is the bus being drawn by the 4-year-old who's feeling really miffed because she wasn't allowed an ice cream? Or is she the 12-year-old teenager who says, I'm going to smoke because you tell me I'm not going to, so I'm going to rebel against you. And just because you're telling me that, I'm going to do the complete opposite. So, well, which one do you want driving your bus? Which one do you want driving your bus when they're being a parent, when they're in a board meeting, when they're in all sorts of scenarios. And we can help that 4-year-old learn about why that 4-year-old, what did that 4-year-old need? Actually, they needed some care and some comfort. And we can give ourselves self-care, proper self-care. And that doesn't mean a glass of wine. It means honouring the feelings, being there to hold that 6-year-old that was crying, our internal 6-year-old. That's why good coaching, good therapy that is robust, compassionate and courageous is useful. Just having somebody who echoes what you say in sort of basic level counselling, I have a problem with, but that's, you know, that's probably, that's hacked off some of my audience there. But, you know, that's my experience in a wide sense. It has to be appropriate, robust, compassionate, courageous, creative, and honouring.
Yeah. Yes, no, I think that absolutely answers the question. And just going back to Faye's question, which is that she thought that children's values and beliefs were formed when they were around 6 years old, but actually, does it start much earlier? I mean, I think the answer to that is it starts from pre-birth and birth. And all experiences, and I think there's a fundamental mistake that sometimes we make, which is that if you can't remember something, it doesn't hurt you, and that is just so not true.
Absolutely, you are so right. You are absolutely right. And the memories that we have from infancy, and some would say pre-birth, those are learnings that we have in our body. It's somatic and its own, and the language comes later. So when we go into our base brain, if you know, go and look at how brains function, but if you think of the just simple triune brain, the base brain, the reptilian brain, has no language, but it controls the breathing, the heart rate. It controls so many things, including fight and flight. And then as we get into the emotional brain, and then the thinking brain. And that thinking brain goes on and offline. And if we're in emotion and we're in fight, flight, we're not able to do the thinking, which is why the window of tolerance is so important. The wider it is, the longer we've got to get into, okay, what can I do to think, rather than being, what, I'm just going to react. And you know, it's kind of, what's road rage? Road rage is a 0 to 100, absolute loss of control just in a moment. So, and in answer to, I suppose, delving down into Faye's question, when do these things form? Yes, they form earlier, and children watch. That 0 to 7 imprinting is so important. 7 to 14-ish is the modeling, and from 14 to 21, in terms of identity and things, it's about socialization. So the more you can do early on as a parent with your child to undo some of the damage, put in other things, check what's going on, and listen, communicate with your children. And communicating sometimes is, and leaving pauses. Don't talk at them, talk with them. That's why sitting side by side in the car, that's why long drives are the time that you often think, how, I never knew about this. And kids start to, and you're concentrating on driving, you're listening, but you're concentrating on, and suddenly all this stuff comes out, and it's like, wow, that's useful. And not having eye-to-eye contact when it's a really challenging situation can be helpful. Because if you look at somebody and say, you know, it can feel quite threatening. So there are lots and lots of tips. I mean, this is, well, we're into 50 minutes almost. I mean, you know, this is a very short space of time. But I hope that's been useful.
It's been,
to the point my brain is frying.
I'm not surprised. You've taken us through so many complex and challenging and really important concepts. And Michaela has posted in the comments here your books, your Facebook group, your YouTube channel, your Fab Parents. So you know, that's where hopefully we can find, anybody who wants to can find more information from you on that. What is the next stage for VIOWLAT? Where are you going with it?
I've got another book, at least one book, gestating. VIOWLAT, I think, is going to be part of it. And, you know, this is VIOWLAT 1.0. I'm going to continue working. I mean, I've got to move, obviously, and pack and do all those sorts of, but that professional, I've taken a bit of a back seat in terms of delivering training. I think you need a pause after you've written it.
Often, yes.
But I'm ready to write again. I'm ready to go back on the road. And, you know, I was doing quite a lot of stuff and then COVID came along. And so to actually continue sharing, because I've been an adopted parent over 30 years now, and I think I have learned a lot. And I've not just been a parent, I've been on government task forces, I've, you know, chaired this, and I've been a trustees of charity, and I've you know, delivered conference speeches around the globe, and I've learned what goes on in Australia. Oh, isn't that interesting how New Zealand do this? So I'm taking all of that along with the coaching and all those things and integrated it. And I hope that what I do is useful for others. I tend not to share my own story about me and my kids. I'm communicating with lots of others. And I think what I tend to do, I want to deliver things that I wished I'd had at certain stages in my own life, in my own parenting life, what I would like to give to my children who are parents, what I would like to give to others who are parents, what I would like that young man, the young, I mean, I can think of one particular person, not a family member, but somebody I know, a young man who is so angry, who I know his history has every right to be angry, and yet he can't get the help and the support that he needs and wants. Now, he's not in prison. He has the potential to be there. I know of other kids like him who are in prison, who have done, you know, really awful things. And when you think back to what their early childhood was like, it's no wonder. And I would like society to become much more compassionate and understand that, you know, the baby Peters and all those infants that die at their parents' hands, we all go, oh, and it's on the front of the Daily Mail and it's terrible and this is awful. That Tim becomes the Tim that becomes a member of a gang that ends up doing awful things because of early childhood. And we really need to make some gutsy decisions. We as a society, politicians, decision makers, really robust things need to be done.
Oh, Helen, thank you
I'm on
so
a soapbox,
much.
I can feel it.
No, that's absolutely, that's fantastic. And that is that's a great way to end. I say great. This is in a week where 2 teenagers are in the news for very painful behavior and outcomes, which is almost certainly exactly the result of what you've said. But thank you so much for this. And please, Helen, do go back and look at the comments on this post, because you'll see that people have been really, really impressed and moved. Margaret Brown says, this has been incredible. Thank you. And that's just one comment.
Well, thank you. And, you know, I mean, I know it's going to go out into that webby spherey thingy. So if people can share it and tell others and, you know, invite me to come onto a platform and speak.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
All of the above.
Yes, very much so. No, thank you so much, Helen.
Well, Lucy, thank you. And thank you for the Book of One's Own, because I know how much difference it makes to people. I know the difference it made to me having books published, and I know there will be others in the future. And it makes such a difference, because the thing with a book is you have to reflect on your thinking and refine it and drill down and hone it. So it's a really crafted piece of intellectual property and ideas, and that whole thing, you know, the TED thing about ideas worth sharing. So thank you for what you do, and particularly for women to getting it out there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Helen, and look forward to the next book. Thank you all very much for being here. It's been a great session. Your questions have been terrific as well. So I hope we'll all see more of Helen and her work very soon. Thank you all, and bye for now.